Hey everyone, Korey here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about picks. I've been on this journey with picks since about 2013 that has been pretty interesting. I've gone through literally hundreds of different types of picks. Shape, size, thickness, texture, material, you name it. And I had a conversation with a student yesterday, and he's just going back and forth between his favorite picks, and he just doesn't know why one feels comfortable one day and one the next. So if you have a favorite pick, put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your favorite pick is. Mine right now is the Dunlop Teardrop, the Tortex Teardrop. And here, I'm not going to go through all of them because we would be here all day. But let me just tell you a little bit of a story here. So this is a tackle box full of picks, and I got a few more boxes over in my stash over here. I never was one to change picks. I started off on the Fender medium celluloid. I used that for the first couple of years, and then I switched to a Dunlop, the Tortex, like a blue one, 1mm. And I used that for a while, and then when I started getting into Eric Johnson, I started using the Jazz 3. So you guys are very familiar with these, and I used these from probably, 1996 until, 2010, maybe. So a long time. I spent 15 years playing Jazz 3s. I didn't know there was anything else. I knew that when I bought a pack of 6 of them, some of the writing, it's nylon, so some of the raised lettering was weird in one pack or something like that. I would have to toss a few. I'm very tactile with my fingers. I don't know if that's the correct word, but it's like when I feel stuff, I feel it greatly. Like it makes a huge difference. And I knew I was very specific about picks, but it wasn't until 2009 when I started getting a lot of swelling under this arm over here. So I started getting like a softball size swelling under here and lots of shooting arm pain. After 7 doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, most of them just said, hey, you're playing too much. You shouldn't be playing 8 hours a day. It's tendonitis or something. I finally got a doctor that told me that I had thoracic outlet syndrome. So basically, I was born with an extra rib up here, a cervical rib, and it basically was going into my brachial plexus, causing all of these nerve issues. And from 2009 until about 2017, when I had a surgery for it, I was experiencing extreme pain. I'm talking about dropping picks. I'm talking about shooting pain. And this is while I'm supporting a family by playing gigs. So I'm playing in house bands 4 days a week, doing church gigs. I'm teaching 40 students a week. And so I'm having all this pain going on. And so I became very alert to how things were working in my hands. And I started noticing that the sharp tip of a Jazz 3 was aggravating my nerve. And so I started experimenting with a lot of different picks. And some of the things that I worked on, one of them was the Fender 354. The 354, let's see if I can pull one out here. I bet you I can. The 354 has been used by David Gilmour and Tommy Tedesco and a bunch of other players. So these are 347s. Here we are, 354. So this is a medium. So if you think of a celluloid Fender medium, that's a 351, and you go all the way down to a Jazz 3, there's a size in between those, and it's called the 354. There's another variation of it called the 347. It's a very similar type of pick. So the 354 is something that I found. A brother of mine, John Shaver, who now works at Interstellar Guitars, go check them out, he gave me a vintage white celluloid 354 to try out. And because the 354 has a more rounded tip, it didn't have the same impact on my nerve. And then I started experimenting with the 347, and then we got, the ball rolling. Then I got into blue chips through Julian Lage and a couple other players. So this is the TP40, one of my favorite picks. Okay, these are $35 a piece. Different material there. That's the same basic tip shape as the 347, only it lasts longer. So that was something else that I tried. Basically, I started going through a bunch of different types of picks, trying to find the perfect mix. Now, when most of my students talk to me about picks, they're only talking about the thickness. So when a student's like, yeah, I've been messing with picks, they will show me a 351 in celluloid, and then they'll show me a Dunlop Gator 351, and then they'll show me a Dunlop Tortex, and then they'll show me a Dunlop Nylon in 351. Those are all the same pick. That's a different material. And so one of the things that I've found is celluloid is going to stick to your hand if you have dry hands. I have dry hands. So I started navigating towards celluloid picks because I like the way they sound. They've been on countless recordings through the years. Most players used celluloid picks. They were invented by the D'Andrea company in, I think, 1919, and they have a bunch of different shapes. Well, the Tortex, which is a Delrin material, that pick, and I'll just pull up those right here, and you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Delrin. You're talking about that green or blue turtle thing, right? So the Delrin picks are good if you have sweaty hands. And all these things contribute to your ability to hold onto the pick and to, feel comfortable. The blue chips work really well because they stick to your hands as well. And so let's just go through a few of these picks here. I tried a bunch of different manufacturers. So these are the Shell Teardrops from Jim Dunlop, and these are 347. I didn't like those because they were hard to hold on to for a celluloid pick. I really got into the Hercos. So these are this is the Flex 75. Jimmy Page uses this pick, if I can get it back here. So Jimmy Page uses that pick, and Rory Gallagher uses that pick. Let's see what else we have in here. We have the 451 from Fender. This is a pick if you like the shape of the 351, but you want it in a Jazz 3 size. Some people don't know that that was even an option. And then I started realizing in my Hercos, so this was probably 2019 or so, the Flex 75 is not the same shape as the vintage Herco, the 66. If you line these two picks up, they're not the same shape. They're different. The shoulder is different. The tip is different. A lot of you are thinking to yourselves, a pick is a pick. It's really not. A lot of times I'll have a student come in and they're like, my playing is completely all over the place this week. And I will be like, well, let me see your pick. You have to understand that, if you buy a pack of Tortex 88s, right? Half of them are bent this way, half of them are bent this way. Go and look. Pull out a pack. I'll show it to you right now. Here's a pack of Tortex. These are 0.73s. Look, I'll put it right up here in the black. That's bent downwards. And now if I pull another one out of the pack, okay, and this one is bent upwards. And you may be saying to yourself, well, that doesn't matter. I'll just flip the pick around. Well, some of us like to have the writing under the thumb because it's textured, right? And so I started getting into all sorts of things. I started experimenting, of course, with different thicknesses. This is a Herco Gold. I started experimenting with different types. Going back to the 347 here, I just want to show that if I can. So the 347, this is used by Jim Hall. The 347 is used by Les Paul. This is the Les Paul pick. So if you're interested in that kind of sound, use that. I know that Warren Haynes of Government Mule plays a 347. Who else uses a 347? There's a couple LA studio guitar players in the 1980s that used those. They kind of escape my memory right now. Here's a close-up look at the 354. So this pick was my main go-to for a very, very long time, and I adore this pick. The only problem is the 354, after a while, I can start to feel my nerve freak out, and I don't know why. You have to understand, as a guy with thoracic outlet syndrome, before I had my surgery, and thanks for asking, I'm totally fine now. We had the rib removed and everything else, but everything bothered me. So different types of celluloid. So the D'Andrea company, which invented, the celluloid pick in 1919 or whatever, that was the standard, and people like Gibson and Fender would work with D'Andrea to make their picks. So if you bought a pick in the 50s or 60s, that was the same pick. Gibson branded 351, D'Andrea made it. Fender branded 351. Fender made it. Well, now we have different things because those were flammable, actually. You could actually set a celluloid pick on fire. So now we have all these different things where we have celluloid made in China, celluloid made in different places, and it's not all the same. Dunlop celluloid is really hard to hold on to, in my opinion. And different colors have different tone as well. For example, Robin Ford in the late 80s and early 90s would only use a white celluloid pick. Danny Gatton would only play white 358s, and I'll get to the 358s in a second. Here's something interesting. Ask Zach, so Zach from Ask Zach, Brad Paisley's old guitar tech, he loves these medium-heavy DeAndreas. I cannot stand these picks because every single one of these is warped. And not only warped, I mean, they are bad warped. Every single one is like, it's aggravated to the south like this, which is really weird. And he might not care so much because he uses the shoulder of the pick, but that tends to bother me. And then you have things like the Nile Pro, so we have nylon jazz picks. We have blue chip picks that are trying to emulate some of the jazz styles. So this goes on and on and on. White Fender heavies to emulate Robin Ford. So basically the idea is I started taking a look at all these different picks. So what are the criteria for a pick? For me, it has to do with a few different factors. Number one, it has to do with comfort. I have to be able to play a pick for a long period of time. As a professional guitar player, I play guitar 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I might teach 5 students an hour a day, plus do a 4-hour gig that day, plus do a session. Like, there are a lot of days, and I'm getting my master's degree right now in guitar, so there's a lot of homework to do for guitar as well. So I am doing a lot of guitar playing. And so a lot of people are like, man, just whatever, man. It's not a big deal. Just play whatever you like. And you have to have something that can be comfortable for long periods of time. The thing that makes me comfortable personally is going to be something that I can cup. So my favorite pick right now, like I said previously, is a Dunlop small teardrop. This is a variation on the 358. And the 358, here's a bunch of them right here, is the small jazz pick that Danny Gatton and Roy Buchanan used, Jim Campolongo, those types of people. And it has a weird kind of curved tip thing to it. And so what I like about this is that its tip is completely the same up and down. Okay? And it's Tortex, so I actually really like the tone of that. It works well with gain, and it feels good in the hand. So I need it to be able to cup like this. Okay? Because I do harp harmonics and a lot of things like that, so I want that pick to do that. Similarly, you have these jazz tones. This is a Dunlop 205 jazz tone. I cannot hold on to this thing. After 2 seconds, it's falling out of my hand. So comfort is one thing. Tone is another thing, right? So the blue chip would have been perfect for me from a technique and comfort point of view, but I cannot stand the tone of a blue chip. Every single note is click, 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 click. Every time I do a recording, click, 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 click. I can't stand it. And I feel the exact same way about all the Ultex or the prime tone types of things, like the Ultex Jazz 3, the prime tone. If you listen to a recording of that, and some people who play those picks use a lot of gain, so it doesn't matter. But for me, I'm playing blues and jazz and funk and R&B and country and stuff. Like, I can hear the noise of the pick, and that makes a huge difference. I started getting into, Japanese variants of some of the things that I was using as well. And, okay, so it's tone, it's comfort. The shape is important. Picks don't just come in a huge size like the 351. They come, of course, in a smaller jazz size, but there's a medium size as well. And I prefer that medium size. I can still cup the pick, but it's not so small that I am using, pinching it really tough just to keep it in my hand. The other thing is material, of course. I want a pick that's going to be able to last. The blue chip lasts for a really long time, but on the other hand, you have a problem with what if you lose it? It costs $35 a pick. So I need something that is replaceable. Okay, so you need something that is comfortable, something that is good for your technique, something that sounds good, something that is replaceable, something that you can get at any store, and And so all of these criteria are really important. Some picks are really good for rhythm guitar playing. I love the way a 347 sounds and plays for rhythm playing. But for lead playing, it's so rounded on the tip that you can't get a real good handle on the string. I love the way that a sharp jazz pick works for some lead guitar playing, but if you're going to do any sort of sensitive rhythm comping, it doesn't work. And so you need a pick that's versatile, because you can't be changing things all the time. Every time I change a pick, something bad happens as far as like my comfort is concerned. So I know this all sounds weird, but I really would like to know your pick journey and what you ended up with. All of this is, of course, subjective. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not making a huge pick video with, grading every single pick on every attribute. I ended up with the Dunlop 1mm blue teardrop shape, and that's where I'm going to stay. And I'm putting the rest of my picks in my pick box, and I'm going to give it to my wife and throw away the key. So what have you used through the years? What is a pick that you think other people should try? And if you keep going back and forth between picks, is there something that you're looking for that you can't find? As a community, I think that we can probably figure that out for you. Okay. I know this has been more of a ramble video, but I just wanted to get this out after a conversation with a student yesterday. So I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.